Good afternoon. Today I will have a short broadcast where I will discuss some of the techniques that I use in Photoshop to give my photography an analog style to it that I use in all of my work. A lot of this will be very high level, and I plan to keep it short so we don't lose too many people watching this in the details. So let's get started. First thing I'd like to say is that the photography that I create digitally is really an outgrowth of what I used to do back when I was in high school in the darkroom, and all of that darkroom work was in black and white, but I really began to like the styles and the techniques of black and white photography. I used a special chemistry that I worked up to give my photos a style. I used Ilford film, high grain Ilford film. I developed it slowly, usually in an extra cold developer to make the development very slow and the grain ultra fine. When I went to print, I like to use a warm tone developer, which was called Selectol, which gave the photographs kind of a very slight sepia style to them, but very soft, very warm style to it. And I've worked with some of the plugins that are offered out there for black and white processing to come up with I guess you would call it a filter that emulates the prints that I would create back in the darkroom. And I use that as the final step on top of my photography to convert the color into a black and white print, which I could very easily print and use as black and white. But I overlay that as a luminosity mask, and I'll show you what that means. It really transforms the image that's color into something that is very reminiscent of a black and white photograph as far as the style is concerned. So I'm going to open up Photoshop here, and in this image that I've opened up, this is pretty much the image as it comes out of Lightroom. It's had a few adjustments for contrast and exposure and color just to make it what I would call a very high quality photograph of the natural scene as it occurred. But with my work, I like to tweak it up, to add some excitement, some color to it, some vivid nature. So the first thing I do is I pull it into a plugin that is used just to kind of up the contrast, the sharpness, and adjust the color temperature a little bit. So as you can see from the original here, down here, we just add just a little bit of tweaking, bring out the blues in the sky, kind of create a normalization of the white balance. Then I use a plugin that really allows me to increase the contrast through what is generally considered high definition range or high dynamic range photography. And this plugin here, as you can see, really starts to create a little separation between the foreground and the background. It brings out details that weren't previously there. So in this case, you'll see some of the darkness up here between the sky and the mountains. You'll see that the foreground subject kind of just pops out a little bit. So I kind of take this up to that next stage to really create what I consider a dynamic image. It's very well balanced. The originally here the background's a little washed out, and the foreground just kind of sits there and a little bit dull. But once this process is added to it, the image begins to pop. And at this point, I would say, if I really wanted to say, I want a natural looking print, this is where I would stop with the process. But as I take it more into what I consider a fine art print, I'll take it into another plugin, which allows me to tweak the style. And you'll notice in this particular perspective, what we do is we soften the image a little bit, we shade in some of the corners to bring out the subject matter in the foreground a little bit and give it a little bit more of a fine art feel to it. But then, you know, I'm not ever really done until I take it to the final step. And the final step is where I take I turn this into a black and white image, and that can be first seen here. Okay, this is what it looks like turned into a black and white image. You'll also see that there's a little bit of a frame that I build around this to emulate the style of a large format camera and a large format negative that would be printed. And I will adjust this, the tones in this to get a really, really high quality black and white print with a dynamic tone range that really speaks to traditional black and white photography. And this is the type of images that I would create in the darkroom when I was in high school. I really loved the prints. You can see it's a warm tone to it, and it's got a really fine grain and a very nice tonal gradation to it. But in order to take this style and turn it into a color print, what I do is I change the style of this layer from a normal black and white to just luminosity. And luminosity just allows the brightness of whatever's behind it to show through. So once I've mastered that black and white and all of its beautiful tones, I overlay it on top of the color and let the colors come through to create this finished fine art print. And to me, this represents the totality of the image as a fine art photograph. So that's the technique I wanted to share with you today. I certainly could go into a lot more details with each of the plugins, but I just wanted to kind of explain the use of a high definition image and converting it over to a black and white image, and then using that as a luminosity mask to finish a beautiful color print that otherwise would not be visible from its original style. And again, this is where we started, and we just kind of evolved it forward to get to this image. I appreciate everyone's attention today. I will be doing more of these videos in the future. I hope you will tune in and watch some of my future presentations. So until next time, take care, and go visit my website, samdobrowphotography.com. There's a whole host of different images out there in different categories, everything from cultural landscapes to surrealistic photography, which I will be doing a very special presentation on that in the future. You can go take a look at the surrealistic photography, especially the Oceanic series, which is surreal artwork from the Ocean Drive district of Miami Beach. Until next time, folks, have a great day.